All right, let's talk about Colston Loveland, the first tight end taken that some people thought was taken a touch early, although pretty much everyone still had a first-round grade on him by the Chicago Bears. But I think he's going to be a really good player for them, and I think we saw him really be able to show some nice things for them in this preseason game. Played 2 series, and actually worth noting, it seemed like he was kind of tight end 2 behind Cole Kmet. Might just be how they're going to kind of integrate him to start and then eventually make him tight end 1. I don't know. But yeah, let's get into it. Starting off with this play, going to be a design rollout towards the offense's right. Loveland's going to start off as though, he's blocking over in that direction, but then he's going to actually be running a route. Watch as he flashes over and then gets to this point where he is past the defensive back. This is a defensive back trying to keep up with Loveland. So that's, part of what sometimes happens with a tight end, right? You have to be able to keep up and be fast enough to outrun corners in certain situations, but also big enough to, handle linebackers. But watch as when Williams gets the ball to Loveland, you see him be able to get to the edge and get 9 yards right there. That's a nice play, right? Again, not a highlight reel level play or anything, but those are effective plays, and this is part of what Ben Johnson wants, right? He values athletic tight ends, and that's certainly something that Colston Loveland is. Although heading over here, listen, athletic tight ends aren't easy to find necessarily, but you can find them. You don't usually spend a first-round pick on a tight end just because they're athletic, and that's not what the Bears did with Loveland. He can do a lot of different things for them. And I do think we saw some of his route running in this game, where you see this play, it's going to be just a curl route right here. But when it begins, watch how he's not giving anything away, right? He's totally sung as though he could be doing a number of different things. So you see the corner who is in his area, he has his back completely turned towards Loveland. He's completely going further down the field. And it's not like there's another route that he feels like he has to cover, because there's a safety deep covering the other guy on the other, that's on his side of the field. So when Loveland cuts, he gets open, and there was a window had the quarterback been looking in that direction. Now, again, it was also open on the other side. Things worked out. Definitely not saying Caleb Williams should have been looking towards Loveland's direction. Just, hey, sometimes you happen to get open on the opposite side of the field from when the quarterback is looking. Doesn't make it doesn't make it less of a good route. And also this next play, again, really going to show off his route running once again. And this is the classic Ben Johnson play. Quite frankly, if you're a tight end and you're playing in Ben Johnson's scheme, you got to be running these over the middle routes against zone coverage effectively. You just do. Well, how does Loveland run this one? So Caleb Williams takes a snap, and you see, again, really selling as though he could be going in several different directions. It's so, it almost feels obvious that those over-the-middle routes are what's going to be happening, but you still want to make sure you don't give it away until as late as possible, right? So when he does then cut, there was a good setup route underneath and a good setup route deep by DJ Moore to allow him to get open over the middle. Will he get this open when it's against, NFL starters? I don't know, but it's still good stuff here by Loveland. Also, we can go over here and talk about his blocking for a second because, for Colston Loveland, he's 6'6", 240, which is a little bit skinny for a tight end, right? Usually you're kind of a couple inches shorter and about maybe 10 pounds heavier, so nothing crazy, but that is part of it. He was kind of billed as a receiving tight end, maybe not necessarily the blocking tight end. So how has he done blocking against NFL players who, again, we can say they're backups all we want. A backup NFL player is still a pretty, big jump up from a, college player. So it still is interesting footage to have here. See on this one, he's going to be flashing around from the offense's left to the right when this play begins, going up against a defensive end here. I mean, that's not the easiest block for him to make. But ultimately, he does make this block. Also, kind of, unfortunately, got kind of bumped into as his legs kind of got tripped up by a different block going on. And then a defensive lineman fell over him as well. But he got in position quickly. He was able to make the block. It's an effective play, and that's all you're asking for, right? Going over to this next one, though, this is more than you're asking for. So he's going to end up blocking a defensive back one-on-one. And one of the challenges, you always think about, well, that's a mismatch, right? If a tight end's blocking a defensive back, that's advantaged for the tight end. But one issue is defensive backs are usually quicker. So it actually can sometimes be advantage defensive back because they can get around the block. They might not be able to overpower you, but they can get around. However, you see that Loveland is so quick and effective, he's able to get in position right away because he has the footwork in the hands of a defensive back, basically. Like, he kind of can match that. So once he can get the position, well, hey, 6'6", 240, that might be a little bit undersized for your typical tight end. It's certainly good size when you get your hands exactly where you want to be and can now try and block away the defensive back. And watch him just drive that player further back to be able to help make that play. Again, really goes to show, I think he'll have a, quite frankly, he'll have a pretty easy time being able to make these blocks in the league. Now, I will say, the blocking was not perfect. Heading over to this next one, this is going up against a linebacker, which I would say is that's like an even matchup, right? Linebacker versus tight end. You kind of expect the tight end to win half the time, the linebacker to win the other half of the time, right? Usually if a offensive lineman's blocking a linebacker, you say that's advantage offense. And I think we get it, right? Linemen go with linemen, tight ends with linebackers, and then receivers with corners. So, okay, well, let's see how this goes. First, again, Loveland doing a really good job of getting in position. That's something he does very well and will continue to do very well. But part of why I do just wonder if you're going to see him do what a lot of tight ends do once they make the league, which is just add 10 pounds. Because again, I'm acting like he's like super skinny or anything. He's not like that far off from what you see most tight ends play as. But he's just, again, a lot like Travis Kelce, 6'5", 250. That feels like the average tight end height and weight. He's just a little bit taller and a little bit skinnier for that. And you see this linebacker kind of knocks him back a little bit and is able to help make that tackle. So yeah, I wondered coming out of college, is he someone who you're going to see bulk up a little bit potentially? But again, he's close. Like, he's not far away or anything like that. Because when a guy's like 20 pounds underweight, then it's like, okay, you probably can't bulk up. You probably just are what you are. But when you're almost there, maybe you could, or maybe you say it's fine. After all, he blocked pretty effectively in the small sample size we saw from him, just that one play where he didn't. So yeah, ultimately the positives for Colston Loveland are very much there. I mean, this is a guy who's still just 21, by the way, so I should mention that. He still has more filling out to do. Great route runner already, explosive, and shows to be at least a good enough blocker. You can deal with what he's doing right now on the field, at least in terms of preseason, what we've seen so far. And I also just think that, like, he is the perfect type of tight end for Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson wants guys who can do those over the middle routes, who are good route runners, especially. That's something that he really values, is being a good route runner. And that's really what Colston Loveland seems to bring to the table, is just how good of a route runner he is. And, again, sure, they already have Cole Kmet, who's a pretty good route running tight end, but now you have two, and you can, play off of that. And we saw them both on the same field a decent chunk, which we might see in the regular season, which is another interesting little fact to talk about here. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on Colston Loveland. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.